it's gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. It would piss a lot of people off, but I think it's much needed in order to improve the ecosystem. There's just so many bots. There's so much grift in like building these communities, right? You go into some of these discords and there's like hundreds of thousands of like bots. You go click on all these Twitter pages. It's all just botted engagement. None of it's real. None of it's organic. The story has to be told from the founder. Like the reason for the founder even wanting to like, accomplish or solve this problem to begin with is really important. Like where is your heart at? Why is it something that you're passionate about? Tell your story. We want to resonate with the people who are actually creating these products, and we want you to tell us, why you believe that this is a really strong mission and why you're dedicating 100 hours a week to this mission. I think founder-led communications, founder-led storytelling is very underrated. Just get nerd sniped, man. I think getting interested in crypto and AI in general is, especially if you're coming from a non-technical background, it's very technically rigorous, especially if you're new to it. You just got to find something that you're passionate about, find something that interests you, and just kind of go all the way and see where it leads you.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we are joined by Brody Adreon from Tao Times to explore AI and crypto through the Bittensor ecosystem. He shares his journey, highlighting developer Mindshare, community optimism, and creative incentives of decentralization. We dig into Bittensor's potential to rival platforms like OpenAI, examine market dynamics, explore the role of storytelling, and stress the importance of authenticity and trust in driving adoption. Now, back to Brody with the 39th Ventura Labs podcast. All right, Brody from Tao Times.
What's up?
How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the show, dude. It's you've been on fire lately, and I need to go back and rewatch some of those because I think there's a lot of alpha in there. And I've been enjoying your show. We of course include your show in our newsletter all the time, and it's a critical resource for the ecosystem. So it's great to finally to be on the Ventura Labs podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here live in person. Where are we at?
Yeah, we're here live in Austin, Texas, the greatest city in the greatest country in the world. Out here in the Manifold Akash Decentralized AI office. As you can see here, if you're watching this, I don't know when the podcast will come out, but if it comes out before Endgame, here's a sneak peek of one of the event spaces. We've got these beautiful offices with beautiful sunlight. We got a ping pong table now. And yeah, it's cool to actually sit down and do the podcast in person. I think Austin is a great city, and this could be a whole topic for the show. But it's a great city for young people, entrepreneurs, people in AI, and if you're in Bittensor, like it's going to be cool to have you down.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's a great place here. How did you first get involved with Bittensor?
yeah, so I guess my first involvement in Bittensor came from Masari. So I was at Masari doing L1, L2 research in Ethereum, and I wanted to kind of discover something new. And I was a ChatGPT power user, like day zero user. And I remember I was in the mall. I called my dad. I was like, "This is the most transformative thing that I've ever touched in my life. Like, this is crazy. It's spitting out all of this text generation and stuff." And I was just so surprised by using AI like for the first time. And I quickly realized how important it was to kind of discover the middle ground between AI and crypto, and because I knew something was there, and I felt like that there was a gap in the market where people weren't realizing that there was fundamental value being created there. So I kind of set out to prove that thesis right, that it was all kind of vapor. And through my journey, I discovered Bittensor. I was reading Sammy and Seth's stuff that they were publishing at Masari. I was, of course, friends with Sammy and Seth at Masari before they even started writing about Bittensor. But it was really much Sammy getting nerd sniped by Bittensor, I think, when at Masari, and really diving deeper onto that. And it was kind of like one of the things where I was like, okay, there's something here because Sammy, I like reading his stuff. So I started talking to them about that more. And then through Outpost, which was my crypto AI newsletter, discovered Bittensor, of course, through that as well. So there's a combination of different factors that were kind of pushing me towards Bittensor. And then after 6 months of studying crypto AI, I was like kind of nerd sniped by Bittensor myself. All these different subnets, the whole ethos, looking at the different developers who were contributing, listening to Jake and his message and his opinions on how Bittensor should evolve and all of that kind of stuff really kind of got me excited about it. So then decided to kind of dedicate 100% of my effort now into building better insights, building better distribution channels for subnet teams, meeting people, helping spread the RAW gospel, so to speak. And now I'm here. And I think Tao Times, yeah, I started that newsletter back in, I want to say the fall of 2024, maybe it was late summer. And I think it's amassed to the biggest newsletter that the ecosystem has. We've got around 1,000 subscribers, all 60 percent open rate, which is a very engaged audience. We've got every investor, every protocol team, a lot of people who are also adjacent in the crypto AI world who want to keep a pulse on Bittensor are subscribed to the newsletter. So it served as a great resource. I mean, I've got people in the office here who say, "Hey, your resource helps me stay up to date because we're so focused on Targon, we're so focused on Bitmind. This resource is really great for us to stay ahead of what's going on in other protocols and kind of communication channels." So we're really appreciative of that, and that makes me really happy. Whenever people find value in things that I create, it's amazing to hear. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but I feel like I finally found something that I'm like very heavily convicted in. That it's taken me a long time to kind of build that conviction. I mean, I've been in crypto for 4 years, and there's it's my conviction has been kind of waning between a few different things, and I really couldn't find something that really hooked me in quite like Bittensor. So
And being in crypto 4 years, being at Masari as a researcher
yes,
there,
correct.
you've seen a lot of crypto projects. What made you stop and double click on Bittensor and drill down here? What differentiated it?
I think the big differentiator for me was like the developer mindshare and like the organic community that was rallying behind Tao. And you see this a lot in crypto where there's just so many bots. There's so much grift in like building these communities, right? And you go into some of these discords, and there's like hundreds of thousands of like bots. You go click on all these Twitter pages. It's all just botted engagement. None of it's real. None of it's organic. The only teams that they're able to kind of manage to build on their ecosystems are all pretty much grant farmers for the most part. A lot of these people just try to max extract instead of add value. And I'm painting a really, wide brush on crypto, but most of it is like that. There's, of course, a couple other ecosystems where I believe are very promising and they add a lot of value to, uh, you know, revolutionizing TradFi Rails and doing all kinds of different things like that. But mainly, like, it was the developer mindshare. And it was a lot of talented people who were, AI native instead of crypto native, AI natives building AI products, but using crypto in a way that incentivizes the production of AI. It was like, for me, obvious that they were using the Bittensor was using crypto in a way that it was meant to be used, which was to incentivize the production of open source AI, not just kind of trying to identify a use case to add crypto to AI. It felt like a very organic and natural use case. And then from there on, that's what hooked me in. And then you're learning about the architecture. You're learning all the protocol jargon. You're getting past like the point of friction. You're figuring out the learning curve, and then once you get past the learning curve, it all is kind of downhill from there. And I think for me, I love a new like intellectual challenge as well. So I was learning a lot about models, model development, training, kind of like the whole AI stack in the process, which was really engaging for me as well because researching other crypto projects, it's kind of like more or less like a different take on kind of the same thing that's already been done. And that's how I got into crypto in the first place was I got nerd sniped by like DeFi Summer, right? I was like, holy cow, they're offering such crazy APYs on these things that have never been invented before. I'm like learning all about new protocol design. And then I got that job at Masari when the market was kind of cratering, and it was very dark back in 2022 post FTX collapse. Like everyone was kind of just trying to survive. No one really knew if the industry was going to recover from such a incident. And a lot of the experimentation was pretty, max extract what little there was left instead of people who were trying to really build. And you kind of saw Solana emerge from all of that dust and debris of FTX into building something like with a very strong message, a very strong narrative, really good tech, and kind of come into its own. And Bittensor was also one of those other ones that really emerged from the debris as well. So um, that's kind of how I kind of frame it is developer mindshare. Like all these other successful projects, why are they successful? They had a lot of developer mindshare, organic developer mindshare, because everyone was pretty mission aligned on what they were creating, and they were using crypto in a productive way that made sense to me. So
Starting at Masari in 2022 after FTX, you started like at the bottom essentially
yeah,
of the market. How have you seen the sentiment around crypto change from that 2022 when we're at like 16K Bitcoin or something to now
yeah.
2025?
Ironically enough, I think it's very difficult to gauge sentiment because I don't think wider crypto sentiment is necessarily attached in parallel to crypto Twitter sentiment. So, for example, a lot of people on crypto Twitter are overly invested in these altcoins, right? Like, so their sentiment is always, I feel, very volatile. It's very negative right now because altcoin prices have seen, 90 to 99% retracements in most of them. And it's, kind of counterintuitive or kind of um, opposite of what we've seen in Bitcoin, which has obviously done very well, which has held really well during all this kind of volatile period of macro. Um, so sentiment's really hard to gauge. But coming back to Bittensor, like everyone in Bittensor, I feel like is max optimistic all the time, and they're so mission aligned that they understand that there there are issues. There was issues with the pre-detail system, but it was like we're going to build a better system. There are kind of some areas where it's difficult for some subnet teams to get off the ground with in this post-detail system, but it's everyone can kind of acknowledge that it's a net better, net positive system that we've moved to. And I think that people are always figuring out a way to remain positive. Like you can kind of see the community rally around the success of individual subnets. And I think that that's very positive overall. And there's not a lot of um, PvP going on outside from Bittensor on other AI ecosystems. Like Bittensor is very much focused on building Bittensor into what it could, possibly be, which is in the perfect scenario, like an OpenAI competitor, right? Or just an overarching foundation lab competitor. And it hits on all these different types of unique use cases. And it can, the total addressable market of this entire thing is so big and the pie is so big, and everybody kind of realizes that's what we're going for. So I think that sentiment's really hard to gauge, especially when you're on Twitter, because it's dislocated from price action. And I try not to get too looped into what sentiment's saying. Like at the end of the day, it's too difficult to follow sentiment. And I think that there was a little bit of a meta back in 2024 when Kaido dropped, where you could kind of like trade sentiment. But then everybody kind of picked up on that, and then the meta and the edge kind of evaporated. And what kind of occurred to me was, hey, you just need to find something that you're convicted in and go all in.
And you said a couple interesting things there. You think BitTensor specifically, everybody's max optimism all the time. Do you see any drawbacks in that? And then you also mentioned, I think you said you see BitTensor itself as like an OpenAI competitor. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But on those 2 points, do you see any drawbacks to the max optimism? And then I guess, how do you see BitTensor competing with OpenAI specifically?
Yeah, so on max optimism, I mean, from a philosophical life perspective, it's like there's this looming question of post AGI. Like, what does post AGI look like? And if you kind of game it out, whatever probabilities you believe we are um, thrusted into this post AGI optimistic utopia world or post AGI dystopian, I would rather be optimistic going into it as opposed to pessimistic, because if you're optimistic going into this scenario, but it ends up being, a dystopian, the opposite of what you anticipated, at least you lived your life leading up to that point in a state of happiness and optimism, as opposed to the latter, right? Because if you're pessimistic and it's pessimistic and it's a dystopian outcome, you've just built up all of this anxiety and you've never actually enjoyed your life. So I think max optimism is kind of how the principle that I carry throughout my days. And of course, every day is not perfect. There are some days that are harder than others. But if you just try to find the good in things, I generally think that's like a much more positive outlook to carry on to life. And I think that reflects in I guess, well, yeah, reflects into the people that you speak with, your community, um, and it helps encourage other people to view things the same way. Now, maybe you could make an argument that max optimism puts blinders on the negative, and it makes you not look into the negatives and address those specific aspects of your life that incorrect like course correct those specific things. And I think that there might be a little bit of that in Bittensor, where we kind of like block out what's going on with everybody else, right? It's like we're blocking out what's happening with these other distributed training protocols that are, um, pushing the frontier of distributed training, or we're blocking out kind of like trying to fix our messaging because we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing is right. And there's a little bit of like an optimism bias for BitTensor that I think is kind of happening within the ecosystem. And that prevents honest conversations, right? Honest conversations about what we actually need to fix as a collective in order to kind of push the boundary and push through this kind of little echo chamber sometimes that we have within the ecosystem. So there is a difference between optimism and realism, but generally speaking, I love to err on the side of optimism because I think that it's contagious, and I think that there's no point in being a pessimist. Um, on the side of OpenAI, I mean, if you look at what OpenAI is doing, I think that they're kind of evolving into more of like a product company. And if we look at where BitTensor is kind of evolving into as well, BitTensor was very much, or it still very much is like an infrastructure heavy side. But in this DTAO environment, these subnet owners and developers are kind of forced to try to capture new users in order to kind of bolster their token, bolster their perceived value, right? And the only way to do that is to build applications. So that multiple users and consumers can touch and feel, and they understand the value that's being created. So I think that BitTensor is kind of following a slightly delayed kind of uh, upwards trajectory that OpenAI is kind of evolving into as well. But I mean, everyone is kind of, looking at what OpenAI is doing and reacting. But what the benefit of BitTensor is that you have this open source community. You don't really need central authority. You can kind of go off and do your own thing and build your own thing, and you can kind of have this multiple kind of shotgun effect where you're shooting a large kind of target and hitting multiple points on the target and seeing kind of what sticks. And I think that's one of the benefits of open source AI. Now, would it be a direct comp to OpenAI? I don't think so. Of course, I think that the total addressable market for BitTensor is honestly bigger, just because of all these different unique use cases that OpenAI might not be incentivized to kind of go and produce internally. It's like they're very focused on this on their specific goals, but since it is an open source community, you kind of have a lot of people addressing a lot of different unique gaps that um, may not be addressed by these larger frontier labs. And the one thing that I come back to too is, and I want to get this right because I think this would be it's like a good articulation of why the combination of crypto and AI works, is because crypto incentivizes maximum creativity and AI allows you to create much quicker. So I think there's this whole thing where if you have a subnet and you have a creative idea, you are incentivized to see the bounds of that creative idea. And if your creative idea hits, you are rewarded asymmetrically, right? And I don't think that these closed source companies are incentivized for max creativity. And I think that that's a clear reason why crypto and AI works together.
So crypto incentivizes max creativity because of the distributed nature of the participants, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that crypto incentivizes max creativity because um, if you are correct in your creative expression, so to speak, then you can unlock an entire new user base or an entire new product or an entire new market that would otherwise be not looked at from a centralized business planning perspective, I'd say. And you are incentivizing a global talent pool with all of these different types of people from different backgrounds, from different ideologies, from different um, like experience level to kind of identify the opportunity to be maximally creative that aligns with what their vision is, that aligns with how they view and interpret a product should be working, right? And then you're able to tap into this global talent pool. As a byproduct of that, you're able to tap into all these different markets. You're able to tap into all these different types of solutions that for problems that you may not even know exist, right? um, and I think that that's a very powerful thing of distributed networks and open source AI in general, is that it's open for everyone to participate in, and it's just not something that is possible through central planning.
And then you said something earlier about BitTensor almost being siloed off from the rest
Mm.
of the world, and BitTensor almost blocks out new entrants in a way. How do you think that can be corrected and BitTensor can become more welcoming to new participants in the ecosystem?
For one, BitTensor is very confusing. Like, I've had to kind of readjust my understandings of crypto by just entering BitTensor, right? And there's a large learning curve. So I think just general resources are really important to get people interested. Having a place to point someone to learn about BitTensor is really important. Having very streamlined guides is very important. Having, you know, a mixture of quantitative and qualitative research that um, or illustrates what's actually occurring at the subnet level is really important. Also, what's happening at the chain level, like how do people actually interpret the economics of BitTensor? The economics of BitTensor are completely different than a lot of the economics that we see, in other crypto um, projects. And I think that that's a very small pie. Like the total pie of crypto users is quite small compared to where we actually need BitTensor to be to become successful if we want to, compete with the open AIs of the world. And I think it all comes down to the product level. It's like, how do we abstract away all of these like the intelligence that's being produced via these subnets, via the miners on these subnets, and we build useful applications that are sticky, right? And I think what OpenAI has done with ChatGPT is they've made it stickier and stickier and stickier to the point where they've kind of changed the user behavior, because instead of going to a search engine now, I go to ChatGPT to ask all my questions. I go to ChatGPT because it has a context of all of our chats. It understands what my goals, what my objectives are, what like I'm going through, how do I kind of create different negotiations, like the different types of research products that I'm like projects that I'm working on. So it has all of this context, and it's a very sticky product. So I think all it really takes is like one really sticky product that abstracts BitTensor away for this thing to like really prove its value. And again, back to like kind of my analogy of shooting a shotgun at a target. It's like you've got you're spraying this huge target where like you have all these different types of dimensions where BitTensor could identify a really sticky solution. I think that's really positive. So to answer your question more directly, I think there needs to be more resources. I think media is a great way as well. People can tap into this. People can hear, my opinions and my articulation of how I view BitTensor and where I view it going, and kind of what I think is needed. And I think that's really important because it makes people kind of reflect inward and ask themselves the same question. I think um, just creating different avenues for people to learn and get involved. I mean, I'm always open to having conversations about this stuff. I think workshops are really important at the developer level. I think documentation is important. I think um, launching like easy ways to like one click deploy a miner is really important. And I think generally speaking, the barrier of entry is lowering. And that's something that I'm very passionate about doing, is because the only way for this to succeed is for the barrier of entry to lower. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And that's something that I really want to focus on throughout the rest of 2025.
This is something you are actively doing with resources, Tao Times.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that that was one of the main reasons why I launched Tao Times, was because I wanted something to track myself. I was like, I'm doing all this work to track what's going on. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here. No one's really talking about this in like an aggregated, consolidated way. I already had a newsletter outpost, which is General Crypto AI. So I spun out Tao Times just because I wanted to keep track of it myself. And then people loved it, and people started to subscribe. And then at the point where Tao Times actually flipped the subscriber base of Outpost, I was like, hey, like we should, focus more on this, because there's obviously something here. The market wants it. A lot of people, like OG Bittensor members, say to me, hey, this is an amazing resource. Like, we love this. Can you do more of this type of stuff? And I said, yes, of course, I'd love to, which has now led me to kind of figure out exactly what I'm going to do next post Outpost, which I've got some ideas cooking, but most of it it revolves around things I kind of alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
So
And
exciting times.
you said you're going to be making some more announcements about that in the future here?
Yeah, we'll make some more announcements. I'm working on branding right now. Picking a name, ironically, is like the hardest part, because it's what people like recognize you as. So I'm working on some branding, but we've built the team around this. We're starting kind of like our early stages of setting like the foundations for a lot of it right now, putting that in motion. We'll have some announcements next week during Endgame, but I know there's probably a ton of announcements coming out. Like, my announcement will probably be in the shadows of a lot of bigger announcements. But yeah, still working on the ideas, but have a pretty solid plan for what we're going to do next.
And for Tao Times, what does your workflow look like to keep up with all the now 90 something
If
subnets?
I told you my workflow, I'd be telling you my secret sauce. But no, I really just, I'm just active, man. I'm like talking to people all day. Like, I feel like I'm on Telegram and Discord all the time. I'm really just observing, I'm reading, I'm learning in real time. Of course, Grok is amazing for indexing Twitter and indexing all these announcements. I've got Twitter lists where I go and kind of just scan manually as well. I listen to the shows. I just try to absorb as much information as possible. And by absorbing as much information as possible, by learning as much as possible, I'm capable of like distilling what's signal from noise. And I think the most important part about the newsletter is that it is constantly high signal, and I want to keep it high signal. So lately I've kind of evolved the newsletter into much shorter, more high signal newsletter, as opposed to like what I was doing before, which is just a huge long newsletter of everything happening with each subnet. I was talking about the incentive mechanisms changing on subnet XYZ, and how the validator code has been changed, and doing all that stuff, until some people were like, hey, dude, like, this is not as high signal as we would like it to be. We want you to focus on like the top, 10 to 15 things, whether it be alpha from the community, whether it be like a really big announcement, and so forth. So I've kind of distilled that down. And just by learning and doing all of that, I found a good pulse on what the people care about. And I think that's really important.
And distilling signal from noise with detail, there's a lot more noise being made in the BitTensor ecosystem now.
Right.
How do you filter that out and actually decide what is signal in this detail world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it just comes down to my intuition, because this is what I was doing primarily at Masari, was I was deciphering signal from noise real time for like 300 protocols, writing about 300 plus protocols in real time, trying to figure out which announcements were worth, discussing, which ones actually moved the market, which stuff was kind of fluff. So I feel like over the past 3 years, I've like developed intuition about whether this partnership is actually a bunch of baloney, or if this is something that's actually valuable. Also talking to people, I think establishing a really strong link to the subnet teams and the validators and the investors, just really just trying to determine what it is that they all need, and being kind of the glue for all of those really heavy hitter participants, has been something that's been very valuable to myself, and of course the newsletter, and as an extension of that, the wider ecosystem. So really getting a pulse on what's important to each type of entity has allowed me to really hone in on what is actually important to put in the newsletter. Um, but like I want to like also make clear like the newsletter is very much like going to be 5% of what I work on here over the next year. Like the newsletter is a great resource, and it's relatively the workflow is pretty easy now. It's relatively easy to spin up, and I think there's a lot more insights to kind of distribute for the wider group of readers outside of just like the weekly update. The weekly update was more or less a way to hold me accountable in the beginning. Got really good feedback, a really good signal from everybody else, and now it's time to kind of like kick it up a notch because I myself want to do harder things and I want to learn about you know more interesting, more technical things, take a more technical approach, kind of go back to my roots a little bit before I even got into crypto. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on next.
What were you doing before all this? What was
Yeah, so
the route?
I guess I can tell my story a little bit, but back in college, I was building like automated trading strategies for futures and options contracts. Made a lot of money through that. Ended up losing a lot of that money because my models were busted during COVID, as I'm sure um, you know might make sense for a few people who were kind of building stuff back then as well. And then kind of was jaded from financial markets, just from getting blown out. And then through that whole time, I was studying for a degree in data analytics and finance. So I got my degree in data analytics and finance. And then I got my first job as a data analytics consultant at a consulting firm, and was just building like a lot of like dashboards and predictive models for just like middle market companies. And it wasn't really interesting. Inventory models, different like financial statement analysis, different ways of interpreting that, spinning up databases, spinning up different like just cloud instances and stuff. It was not really thrilling work at all. So then I found the first job I could find in crypto, which was in 2021. I worked for a crypto accounting firm as a product manager there. So I was building a lot of dashboards that kind of analyzed risk, analyzed balance sheets, analyzed loan books, doing real time asset attestation platforms, and serving as kind of like a solutions engineer, product manager, doing a little bit of hands on programming there as well, a data visualization there, and then wanted to get closer to the crypto native side of things, and that's when I joined Nasari.
There you go. And now,
Yeah.
how do you tap into that experience of the traditional business world when you're talking to these developers and teams in Bittensor? How do you judge what they're doing in this decentralized AI space?
Hmm.
Because it is quite a big shift from the traditional
Man,
world.
I wouldn't survive a day in the corporate traditional world now. Like I have just been let off the leash and I'm not coming back. Like I feel that way. Like it is completely different, and it's so unstructured, but I feel like I thrive in creating my own structure on my own life. Um the tech stacks, of course, were like completely different, right? Like I'm using Azure and AWS consistently over at those in those roles. But now I'm kind of just, using all these vibe coding platforms now, and the stack is way different. I feel like the different technologies that are being used are way more frontier, obviously, like in my current world than back when I was at my previous job. And it's just way more exciting. Things move way faster. There's no bureaucracy. You don't have to ask permission to do something. I was getting a lot of pushback on some of my ideas because I was a junior person. I would go into this role and I'd say, "Hey, I have an idea to build this regression model that analyze and tries to predict like inventory levels for a specific SKU." And I have all this data. I had just like just rows and rows and rows of data, and I'm like trying to just playing around with it. And they're like, "Did you get a sign off on using that data to build your own models? What are you using to build your models? We can't actually offer this to the client because this is out of the scope of work. We're using resources to build these things that aren't within what the customer asked for." And I'm always saying like, "Yeah, but they're better products. Like it's a better solution than what we're doing. Like, why don't you let me do it?" And you kind of get a slap on the wrist for just like trying to like push the boundary and stuff. And I just got tired of that, man. I was like, I'm done doing that. Like I'm gonna just go build stuff and like add value where I can, add value off my own intuition, trust my own intuition, trust my gut. And so far it's like worked for me. Knock on wood.
And using that own intuition, when you talk to the people in Bittensor, the subnet teams of the world, the validators of the world, how do you judge what they are doing, what they are building with Bittensor?
It's really difficult. And I think that that's one of the beauties of it. It's also so abstract, right? It's like I'm thinking about like what is the total addressable market for like very fast inference? Like if you assume that the entire world and all of our digital experience will be driven off of like inferencing, like a model, like a very or a series of models or a swarm of models, like what is the total addressable market of that? How many inference requests am I going to send in my in my day if I'm working hands-on in AI in the year 2030? How many inference requests are going to be routed to a swarm that has an individual inference request? Like I feel like you can just so abstract, and that's what makes AI so cool is like we actually don't know the total addressable market for these types of things, like these types of products. Like I want to also take like Bitmine, for example, like Subnet 34. It's like, what is the total addressable market for identifying deepfakes? Like, we're obviously in a world where deepfakes are just accelerating at an insane rate. The consequences of falling a victim to a deepfake are growing substantially. The upside of being able to identify that something's deepfake is growing substantially. So how do you actually value that? So getting back to your original question, I think it's really difficult to kind of judge um, the value that's being produced here. And that's why I think that it's such a great thing to speculate on from like a trader perspective. It's like, why would you not want to play in these markets? Because there's just so much value like that is up and to the right that could be created. And at the same time, it's like we've got 90 of them. We've got 100, we've got 1,000. Who knows until we reach 1,000 subnets? Like there's all these different little experiments, and they're all being incentivized you know, for max creativity, back to one of my original points. So the question is, I'm not sure how I actually really wrap like a qualitative framework around some of this stuff, because someone that you may have discounted or yeah, discounted in the past, could come up with a breakthrough solution in the next few months. We don't truly know. So that's why I don't ever discredit any team building. I don't discredit anybody who's actually in the lab, in the arena, trying things, as Chamath may say in a tweet. Um, but yeah, it is very difficult, and you can just take your best judgment. I think like a lot of this is intuition, vibes investing to the nth degree. I think like I don't think anyone has truly figured it out, right? Like I mean, you see the private market valuations of these frontier labs just growing and growing and growing every single quarter. It's like you see OpenAI raise a new round. It's like however many billions of dollars now, right? It's like what is the actual total addressable market? You just see Nvidia just go up and to the right forever because nobody actually knows when demand's going to slow down for their chips. Obviously, asterisk, things have changed with this whole tariff back and forth. But the point is no one actually knows. People are just kind of just chucking money at it, hoping it sticks, hoping something happens. And I think that's an excellent environment to kind of speculate on.
And then in that speculation and that creativity, when you're looking at subnets that do very similar things, how do you differentiate which one's better than the other when they're in competing markets?
Right. That's a great question. And that's something that I haven't really been able to wrap my head around either. I try to like just gather as much information as possible. I think that everyone is trying to put their own little twist on it. And um, all of these are like erroneous data points, like are really hard to kind of like draw the lines between because how do you judge PMF? I guess like what you're looking for on that specific thing is like PMF. How do you judge PMF? Is it minor registrations? Is it requests or queries or whatever? I don't really know how you do it, and I don't really know if like how to wrap a framework that applies to all different competitor markets. I don't know. It's kind of like a nothing burger answer, but my main thing is I don't know. Like I don't think the market also knows either. Like we all kind of just are just experimenting, trying different things, and maybe something sticks, and then the benefit of that is something does stick. That maybe this path that Tao takes is it proves to be more valuable than the path that Efficient Frontier was going on. So then Efficient Frontier, maybe course corrects a little bit to do something that's more aligned. Like in this competitive environment, everyone gets better because we're all observing what everybody's doing, that things that work. And I think that's amazing.
And then you also had a recent point of storytellers
Right.
being missing from the ecosystem. Is there anyone you can point to that is higher up on that hierarchy of
Mm.
storytellers? Or is it just across the board, nobody's able to tell a good story for why there's something that
No,
matters?
no, no, no. That's definitely not true. I think there are definitely people who tell better stories than others. I think Bittensor has been so focused on building really solid tech foundation before going out to the market and telling their story. I think the ecosystem is generally very engineer heavy, and they've not had to really focus on telling the story pre-detail because the story that they were telling was to validators who were also very technical, right? So it was like your story on distributed training is interesting. Therefore, I will, allocate, a portion of emissions to your subnet to give you more, foundation, more funding, more capital to continue on this research, right? But now the dynamic has shifted, and the market needs to hear the story. And um, I think the market is going to value stories attached to products, things that they can touch, right? I think he said this. He's like, one of the things that he determines the value or whether or not he's interested in a subnet is if he can actually touch the product, touch the intelligence that's being produced, and you do that through products. But specifically on stories, like to give credit to a good storyteller, I think Rayon Labs is doing a really great job. I mean, what they're doing with like this like showing like the data, like where, hey, like this is what's happening, here's what we're producing, here's all of our users, here's the proof, here's the charts. They've been doing a great job at telling their story of why this is something that matters, like showing how it's being used. I think showing real usage is really important. I also think that let me go down the list of subnets in the top ranks here. I think Bitmine does a great job. I think Ken is very public. He's been working with PR Validator a lot to get on these local news channels, and like maybe someone from the local news like watches the local news and is like, wow, deep fakes are like a really big problem. Like I'm gonna actually look into this because this is really interesting, and they're building a solution for this. I think Ken tells a really good story around why deep fakes are a problem, and I think that Bitmind, their marketing and their communications are reflective of that. I think a lot of it comes down to the story has to be told from the founder. Like the reason for the founder even wanting to like accomplish or solve this problem to begin with is really important. Like where is your heart at? Why is this something that you're passionate about? Tell your story. We want to resonate with the people who are actually creating these products, and we want you to tell us why you believe that this is a really strong mission and why you're dedicating 100 hours a week to this mission. I think founder-led communications, founder-led storytelling is very underrated. I don't think it's a hot take anymore. I think the over the past year we've seen that people want to interact with people, especially in this whole world where we're just getting a bunch of AI bots and AI slop everywhere. It's like an AI generated text. It's like, no, what do you actually think? Not what the AI thinks. And I think there's going to be an uprising against like this whole dead internet theory. If you're familiar with dead internet theory, it's just like this world where the internet is just completely, bots interacting with bots, and there's no organic human interaction. I think that that's like a contrarian that would say like, no, I think that the internet theory will not become a thing because people still want to interact and engage with people, instead of, again, as an extension of that, like product or project accounts. So people want to interact with Ken, people want to interact with me, people want to interact with you. Um, and I think that that's really important from a project perspective, is like you are out there, you are being vocal, you are telling your story, and people will resonate with that, and you'll get people hitting you up, wanting to learn more.
How do you get people to care about that story you're trying to tell, though?
I think you do what again, like what Ken has been doing, just showing up every day, just being active, being engaged. Hosting events is another thing. I think this event we have coming up, Endgame, is a great opportunity for these founders to be in front of other people and interface with one another, collaborate on ways that, your project could add value to my project and so forth. Just being visible, being doxxed, I think really helps. Like people like for this example, it's like I'm able to showcase my personality. I'm able to kind of pitch a reason why you should, read the stuff that we're producing. And people can generally tell that comes from like an authentic and genuine place because I'm actually passionate about this stuff, or else I wouldn't be spending my time here talking to you about it, right? I think authenticity goes a long way. And I think just by consistently being available for people, setting up ways for people to learn about your project and helping them and giving them guidance and giving them resources to learn is just like a very easy thing to do that requires a lot of effort, but it's relatively easy. um, I think the days are done where it's like you sit in your apartment and just code all day and hope the market recognizes the value of what you're producing. Like you have to be vocal, you have to like explain why this stuff is important.
And when you meet with these people or you see these people telling their stories, how do you tell who's authentic in what they're doing versus the people just faking it and trying to make
Man,
a buck?
that's like a story, that's like a problem as old as time, right? Like how do you actually determine if someone's like a trustworthy actor or not? And I think that just goes around to just like a lot of intuition and EQ, right? I think that that's something that you just kind of learn as you interact with more and more people. And some people fool you, right? Some people kind of throw you under the bus or they rug you, and you're like, dang, I didn't think that would happen. But you kind of learn as you go. You roll with the punches. It's kind of like just a learned trait. I think is to just determine who is an honest and faithful actor. I don't know. I don't really have a clear. It's just vibes, dude.
Just
Just
vibes.
vibe checking people.
Yeah.
You ever meet someone out at the bar and you kind of just see him and you're kind of like, man, that guy doesn't look like he's up to any good. Like it's kind of like one of those things. You can kind of just sniff it out. Um, at least that's how I kind of assess it.
Yeah, Mark Jeffries mentioned a similar thing. He's like, if I just sit down and talk with them, I can tell.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
have
Mark.
that same feeling?
I agree. I mean, Mark Jeffries is a great guy. We had him on our show too, on the Tao Talk show. Um, and yeah, I 100% agree with that take. Like, when I'm in the office here, I'm in the Manifold office. Like, I can just tell that Caro and James and the entire team they're just great people, right? And I mean, I feel like that way about like 99% of the people in the ecosystem. Like, you can just tell that they're there for good, pure reasons, not to value extract. And that's another, again, like as I became more acquainted with Bittensor and I talked to more people, I was like, dang, these are like really great people. These are very people that I trust a lot. Like even like my guys, Sammy and Seth, shout out to them for the launch of their new fund, Unsupervised Capital. They're just great people, and they share the same sentiment as me. Is like they just love being a part of something where it feels like we're all striving towards something that's very, very grand, very large, this huge mission. I think that generally attracts very optimistic, authentic, genuine people.
And shout out Sandy and Seth with the
For sure.
unsupervised.
I feel like I got to. I mean, we're all cut from the Masari cloth, man. I got
Yeah.
to give credit to where credit's due, the Masari Mafia.
And what they're trying to do there is bring in outside like institutional capital, no?
Correct. Yeah, and I think that it's a big thing that we're beginning to see. Fred Krueger was another one who, I don't know how he got tau pilled. Maybe JJ was in his ear a little bit, but I think like this evangelism, it just attracts. It's just like we're just so annoying on Twitter. It's like I feel like I'm so annoying sometimes. It's like I've got this audience, this crypto audience, and I'm just like shoving Bittensor down their throat. It's like, no, you have to pay attention to this. Look, 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 and then it works. It's like we've got people who reach out to me, my sorry friends, or other liquid funds, like big hedge funds, are like, no, like you've been talking about this a lot, and like I trust your research, I trust your intuition. Like, what is this here? What is this? And I think that Sammy and Seth, they're saying the same thing. They've got large audiences in wider crypto, in wider AI, TradFi, and so forth. I'll give a shout out to JJ here as well. He's got a track record of success in Silicon Valley and Web2, open source AI. It's got kind of like a cross pollination of audiences who are all kind of coming together under this unified vision of Tao. And I think that will lead to a domino effect of attracting more talent, attracting more people, attracting more capital, attracting more just new ideas in general. I mean, I'm talking to a subnet team who they work at the NASDAQ, right? And they found Bittensor through like some of my articles or some of this, and they're like, "This is really cool." I kind of got nerd sniped by it, and now they're dedicating their free time now to building a subnet. And it's like they work at the NASDAQ, like they have a ton of connections in TradFi, right? And then maybe one of their friends who works at Goldman or whatever is like, "No, this is actually really cool. Like, let me convince my friends to start to leisurely participate in these markets and like onboard capital." And I think it's like a very organic, natural order. And I think another thing that a lot of people talk about is the purity of BitTensor. It's like um, there was no pre-mine, there was no, you know, big like venture pre-seed deal. There's no token lockups for a lot of these like early stage investors. Like it's very pure, and I think that story, the story of BitTensor, is one that a lot of people resonate and find parallels that of Bitcoin. So I think the purity and the trustworthiness, the honesty, um, like trust and honesty is like the most valuable currency, especially in this very PvP environment that is crypto, right? It's like no, it's like if you're a trustworthy person, back to another original point that we had, we're talking about honesty. It's like if you're a very trustworthy person, like you can go just a long way just from that alone. Trustworthy, hardworking. You can be dumb as a bag of bricks, but if you're trustworthy, man, like people will resonate with you and help guide you and bring you with them. So I think trust is very undervalued.
And you spent a lot of time in crypto where a lot of people don't have that
Right.
trust,
Yeah. To-
sense of honesty.
totally.
How do you see that being different in BitTensor? And how do you judge who to trust? Because you've had to analyze, like you said, over 300 projects in your time.
Yeah, I mean, I think like again, it goes back to just understanding and having a sense for EQ, like a high EQ, and understanding kind of ulterior motives. I think, um, I mean, I've been in situations where people I can like kind of get a sense that they want me around because they think that they can get value out of me, and then I like you want them around because you can get value out of them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. Um, and that's a lot of just how business and relationships work in general. But I think just trust in general is just the most highly coveted characteristic to have. And I don't know if this is answering your original question, but if you could repeat your original question, maybe I could help
But
with.
it was just how do you distinguish who you can
Mm,
trust and who you
yeah,
can't trust?
I
What
think,
projects you can trust or projects you can't trust?
yeah,
Statistics you can trust,
yeah.
statistics that may be fabricated.
Statistics is a good one because I think you can make data say whatever you want it to say. And that's one of like the things that I'm coming back to. It's like, how do we build a framework for trusted data, right? It's like, well, we can't accept payments from subnet teams. We can't accept payments from specific people. We have to just we can't really trust dashboards that are built by subnet teams. We have to go do our own digging. And we want to be that trusted source of information. And like that's why I've been so hesitant in my previous venture, Outpost, to take sponsorship deals and to take like paid shows. Like, dude, I'm getting offered to do paid shows and paid shit all the time, man. Like it's just like it's never worth it. It's like no, I've accrued a lot of trust, and I value that trust and that honesty more than just like a check. That's fleeting, right? And I think again, it goes just back to like what I value in people as well. And I just think that if you kind of hold yourself to that standard, then you will organically gravitate towards other people who will as well. It's an EQ thing. It's a vibes thing.
And with the paid chills, when people approach you with these offers, is it just, hey, pull post our subnet, hey, write an article here, talk about us on Tao Times? What does it normally look like?
Yeah, I don't think necessarily is bad. Like I don't think that highlighting for like for transparency and honesty, like I don't think it's bad to do paid work. Like I don't think it's bad to do paid shows. It's more like, you know, I am not disclosing that it's paid. I'm not disclosing that it's like that I have a position in this before I tweet about it. I think that that's, maybe a little dishonest. Um, but how do I approach it? It's just like I just think it's unfair for me to give special treatment and privilege to specific teams when my job is to um, cover the ecosystem equally. And that's something that I've been, balancing the past, year, is like, how do you, make sure that you're being compensated for providing a quality service um, in an honest and trustworthy way. I think there's ways to do it. It's just I've not gratefully been in a situation where I've had to take stuff. And for the most part, most of this stuff is not within the business or ecosystem as well. Like this was before I got into crypto, was like doing stuff for Outposts. You're just getting like dodgy deals, dodgy people being like, hey, promote our node sale. And you're like, why do you have a node sale in the first place? And it's like, well, you need to register this and do this and like we need, it's like basically to help bootstrap capital on their end and they can pay their salaries and yada yada yada. It's more stuff like promotion on that side of type of stuff external to the Bittensor ecosystem. But I would like to figure out a way to work with teams though to do like honest reporting and coverage, because I think that there's still a lot of value there. And I think that helping teams tell a story and taking compensation for that is not necessarily like a bad thing. It's just I haven't figured out a way to do it myself that is fair coverage for the wider ecosystem.
And what is your opinion on these KOLs starting to pop up in the Bittensor ecosystem? We're starting to see a little flurry of them as detail has emerged.
Man, KOLs, I hate being described as a KOL. I'm trying to shift the narrative on myself. A lot of people saying like, "Oh, Brody is like a new KOL and whatever." I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you can be a KOL and be like a research KOL or whatever. I mean, I don't have any strong opinions. I think they're a net good, honestly. I think that KOL gets a bad rap because KOL implies that they're getting like their paid shills to dump on unsuspecting retail investors and stuff. I don't know if a lot of that is going on like within our peer ecosystem. I'm sure as it gets more PvP and the stakes get higher, there'll be a lot more of that. And that's just like a natural order of kind of like crypto evolving, and or a project evolving in crypto. But I think it's net positive. I think these people have like really, really large audiences, and I think it's good to just spread the word, spread the gospel.
And as BitTensor gains popularity, do you think we'll see some of these KOLs from other ecosystems start to come in,
Yes,
start pumping up subnets just to dump?
of course, of course. I mean, you're kind of already seeing it, like you said. I won't name anybody specific, but the people that I do know who are getting much more interested are very good, honest, faithful actors. Who I wouldn't suspect would just be out for malicious intent. Because again, it's like you just cash in your morals, and it's like for what? It's like the only thing that you can take to your grave is like the person who the world perceived you as, and I'm not gonna be that guy, and I don't think a lot of the other people are want to be known as those people as well. Um, so I think a lot of the good faithful actors are coming in. We'll probably see some bad faith actors, um, but that's just the name of the game, I guess. Just try to pay them no mind, correct them when they're wrong, call them out when they're kind of acting out of place. I think a lot of people need to be called out. I mean, there's some stuff going on with uh, not getting into the project, big project in crypto, and people are starting to call them out on their bullshit. And I think it's good because this person has like made hundreds of millions of dollars cashing out locked tokens OTC to like unsuspecting or like to buyers at like a heavy discount, nuking the token chart in the process. Those people are transitory. They'll go to jail. Justice will be served, or they'll never participate again. So I think that that's generally a natural order of things. Hopefully, I mean, people have started to take the whole crime is legal thing a little bit too far. I think. Hopefully, there's still some law and order in the digital asset markets, but generally speaking, I think karma catches up to those people. And I want to be someone who accrues good karma.
And calling out these bad faith actors versus kind of inner subnet beef
Mm,
between subnets and larger players in the ecosystem, how do you distinguish the difference when you're calling someone out from a personally advantageous standpoint versus truly calling someone out?
Right. Regarding like the inner subnet beef, I think a lot of that stuff is like a net positive. I mean, I kind of view it as bickering. Maybe the people who are in the bickering don't view it as that, and they take it, a little bit more seriously than me. But I actually learned the most during those types of conversations because um, I think that like it battle tests your idea, it battle tests your conviction. It's like I actually enjoy when people, come to me and say, "Well, BitTensor's a load of bullocks. Like, why do you like this? It's just an AI Ponzi." And it's like, "Oh, I gotta strengthen my ideas, strengthen my perception, strengthen my thesis on why I'm actually bullish on this ecosystem." And then alternatively, at like a micro level, it's like, okay, like if we're building competing um, I won't like say anything too specific, but say we're building a competing subnet that makes advanced AI kettlebells. I'm just looking at some kettlebells over here, right? Like I want to know if you think no, the metal that is in your kettlebell is freaking stinks, man, and you need to build it with this kettlebell with this type of metal. And like it really strengthens like, okay, well, why am I building it in this specific way? Like why have I chose this manufacturing process? Why have I chose this paint? Why have I chose this 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 idea? And it really strengthens your argument for, hey, do we actually need to shift course, or are we convicted in our original architecture and plan? So I think it's generally positive to a degree. I think at some point it does kind of go overboard where things could get personal. And at the end of the day, it's like, guys, we're just still we're trying to build something productive here as a collective. And it really does feel like a case of sometimes like who is the taller midget, like we're both still midgets, like which one's taller, when really it's like no, we need to come together, and like it's good to a degree, and then yeah, we need to actually have a productive conversation about how we actually make this better for the wider ecosystem.
And the wider ecosystem as a whole now has been very focused on price and particularly sum of prices. What is your take
Some of
on
prices.
sum of prices?
So I actually think, I mean, like I think my last tweet predicted like the Pico, not the Pico top, maybe the local top of some of prices. I tweeted the other day, I was like, hey, you know, the amount of tau that's coming off of root has to continuously accelerate in order to sustain the level of growth in these alpha prices that we've seen. Kind of seeing smart money a little bit hesitant, smart money taking a little bit of profit, seeing it kind of like the amount of tau coming off of root level off. And I mean, that's reflected in the alpha prices today. The sum of alpha is down maybe 10%, 15%. Um,
And as we speak, it's probably at around two,
who knows? Is it? Maybe, maybe.
more or less.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that all again, like I'm not a short-term trader by any means. I'm like I've been mildly successful in detail thus far. Nothing like crazy, nothing like some of these other wallets, but it's just it's all kind of noise, and I kind of recognize that it's noise. I try not to pay much mind to like these short term trends. I think there's opportunity to scalp in these short, volatile, illiquid subnet markets, but or alpha token markets. But generally speaking, it's not sustainable for the average participant to like continuously track like these charts and metrics on like a day by day basis. So I think the best advice that I would offer is like not pay attention to the prices that they are now. If especially if you're like a casual observer, it's like find a subnet that is um, that you resonate with their vision, that you believe is building very productive intelligence on their subnets, and start to DCA, start to play around, get acquainted with it. Maybe you want to do a little bit of short time horizon trading just to get acquainted with how detail works. I think that's fine. I think that's cool, but don't like get too attached to short term price action and volatility. I think that's just not productive. Like focus on what you're building, focus on your craft, focus on building your knowledge base, focus on the metrics at large and what they represent and what they mean, and kind of like position yourself for the medium to long term. I think right now it's still very PvP in the alpha token markets. I mean, the price action in alpha is completely driven off of Tau leaving root. We know that. There's no inflows into Tau, or else Tau would be trading higher than what it is. But I think that once more inflows come into Tau in general, that's where the biggest opportunity will be. So as Tau goes up, I think price action and alpha tokens will go even higher. And there's still a lot of edge to be found. I think a lot of subnets are building good stuff. They haven't been telling their story. But if you go and you try to dig up the story that they're trying to tell, you talk to these guys who are like, hey, dude, like, what is it that you actually are building? And they tell you it. I think that there's a lot of edge. There's still a lot of information asymmetry here.
And what do you think the relationship between the productivity in the ecosystem of developers and things being built and products being built and user adoption and price actually looks like in reality?
That's a great question, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I don't have any like metrics and like data to support any of this stuff, but it's just kind of like my own inclination. It's like the intelligence and the quality that is of outputs that is being produced on Bittensor is in a way directly proportional to the price of Tau and the price of the alpha token, right? That's something that I've been thinking about. It's like what happens, it's very upward and downward reflexive in its ability to create intelligence for these miners, because at what price does it become unprofitable for some miners to contribute to the subnet? And I think we're at a point where it's not incredibly daunting to continuously invest in this stuff, but I would actually like to know the numbers on like, hey, if Tau does go lower, what does our bandwidth look like from a miner capacity to be able to provide this service at this level? I don't know, and it's different for every subnet. Of course, every subnet has different requirements in order to be the top miner, and to be producing something of substance. But naturally, talking about the upside here, or the upward reflexivity here, it's like if these alpha emissions become much more lucrative, the prize to earn that pool of emissions will become larger, attracting more talent, which attracts more creative minds, which increases the fundamental value of Bittensor and of that subnet proportionally to the upside. And you just create this environment where it's very hyper competitive. And as a byproduct of that, if the incentive mechanism is battle tested and it's doing what it needs to be done, and there's an application layer on top, and you're figuring out ways to accrue that value back to the alpha token, I mean, you can see some crazy upward reflexivity in a matter of weeks and months, if you're able to harness that energy, and attract those flows. I think the story kind of like writes itself at that point, and people love to kind of champion around winners, and we see that all the time.
Do you think there's potentially an element of people already in the Bittensor ecosystem that are winning at a minor or subnet level, intentionally not making it easy for new entrants to come in so the competition level doesn't increase?
I'm sure there's some of that going on. I mean, like once you find your edge, you don't want to like, share that edge, or else it doesn't become edge anymore, and you're forced to kind of pivot and find a new edge. So I'm sure there is some of that. I can't speak on any like individual specific case, but I'm sure that a lot of people like to kind of sit and ride the emissions and milk them and kind of extract. Um, I think that that's part of every system. You have the people who are leeching. I think that's like the whole mission. That was like the whole thesis behind creating Doge, right? It was like you have like all these government employees who kind of just answer 2 or 3 emails a day, and they're making 150K a year, not adding much value, so that they are able to gut and rinse the system of all of that leverage and excess and fat. And I think that's true to some degree here in Bittensor. I think that the whole mission around, and one of the interesting characteristics about Bittensor is like their testing and production all the time. It's like the incentive mechanism is live 24/7, and you are being tested in this adversarial environment as a subnet owner to continuously modify and tune the dial of your mechanism. And I think that constant tuning is actually productive because it attracts people to exploit it, exploit it. You're constantly tuning it until there's no way to exploit it, and all there is left to do is to be a good faith actor. So it's like really just game theory at its like highest level is right here in Bittensor.
A lot of people would say subnets are being exploited currently, and the subnet owners just aren't aware of it. They think everything's fine, everything works perfectly. Do you think a lot of that is occurring still in the ecosystem?
I mean, again, like I can't really speak from a technical level because like I've not been mining anything. I'm sure there is some of the case. And I think more transparent metrics and more transparent information and analysis, independent, transparent information analysis on those specific subnets to expose that misconduct. It's gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. It would piss a lot of people off, but I think it's much needed in order to improve the ecosystem. And that's one of the things that I again like I want to build and I want to do is I want to like expose, not maybe not expose, not the right, expose is the wrong word. I think maybe educate is the correct word because I want all of us to win. I want everybody to win. I think everybody's doing unique hard work for the most part. um, and I think that shining light on exploitations, on ways to improve is going to be really positive for the collective.
Well, Brody, I'm gonna wrap it up here with one
Cool.
last question for you.
Yeah.
When navigating the BitTensor ecosystem and crypto in general, what advice would you have for people trying to navigate BitTensor specifically?
Man, I could chill my newsletter, of course. TaoTimes.ai/subscribe, I think is the URL. But no, on a serious note, um, I think just get nerd sniped, man. I think in getting interested in crypto and AI in general is, especially if you're coming from a non-technical background, it's very technically rigorous, especially if you're new to it. You just got to find something that you're passionate about, find something that interests you, and just kind of go all the way and see where it leads you. That's how I got involved in this. That's probably how you got involved. That's how everybody got involved in this to some degree. Like they just get nerd sniped and they just go. I think also too, like meeting people in the community, having conversations with them, reaching out, introducing yourself, saying, "Hey, what are you interested in?" and having them share their opinions. People are very open. Like I'm an open book. Like I'm open. You can reach me anytime and I'll get back to you. I think when you're doing something as a collective and as a community, and there's real people driving that, I think that that's how you feel like you belong there, and that's how you get motivated to learn more about it. Is that you meet these people who think about the world the same way, they think about technology the same way, they think that they have the same they share similar ideologies, and you can kind of find that gap. And I think that's how you ultimately like stick around, right? Like if the Bittensor community wasn't what it was, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing right now, talking to you. Um, the reason that I'm still here is because the community is so strong, and I feel like I can ask dumb questions. Like I go to Xavier at Leading Holdings. I'm like, hey, I have a really dumb question about a specific metric, and he's so busy, man. He's busy building, but he's like gives me the time to like give me this really thorough answer, and it's like as a byproduct of that, I go back and I give him like really good feedback on his app because I want him to succeed. I want that app to succeed. He wants me to succeed. The more we succeed together, the more we all succeed and help each other, the more we succeed together. And I think that that's really powerful. I think that that's a core pillar of the ecosystem. So I'll end on that. I think that was a great note to end on.
Beautiful note to end on.
Cool, man.
Brody, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you,
dude.
my man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, watch Ventura Labs podcast, man. Great stuff. He's been having some killer conversations lately, and keep up the good work, dude.